Hello, I'm Dave Ratzlaff. I teach natural gas compression out here at Seward County Community College. I'm also a volunteer firefighter and an EMT in the area. We here at Seward County Community College would like to invite you in joining us for a celebration of our hometown heroes. Those would be the police, firefighters, EMTs, medical professionals that are out on the front line during this time of pandemic, and of course our military. So please join us in thanking them for all they do for us, our community, and of course this great country of ours. Again, thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Brian Rixon. I'm a therapist with Southwest Guidance Center in Liberal, Kansas. I want to say Happy Patriots Day to everybody. I would like to share with you a view that some people don't think about, or a perspective that some people don't think about when thinking about first responders. I would like to say thank you to all you first responders and everybody that helps on the front lines of helping others in need, especially when they need a hero, such as many of you have been, and all of you probably know somebody that's been a hero. The thing that I'd like to share today with you guys is just a little bit about the impact on the mental health and emotional well-being of many of our first responders and many of you who have helped somebody else in a great time of need. Many of us don't think about this because first responders of any role tend to be seen as tough and strong and people that don't need any help, or people that seem to be invincible. But just like you and I, people can be impacted by what they do, especially first responders, because they repeatedly are exposed to people in great need and trauma. People like you and I, first responders, can also develop mental health issues, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, family issues, relationship issues, work issues, and just the normal things, an array of problems that you and I face every day. And just like you and I, they also need help and resources in order to do the good job that they do as heroes in helping others when they in the time of need. Some of the things that you can look for in other people and first responders to kind of have an idea of if they may be struggling would be things like loss of productivity at work, tending to isolate from others, trying to avoid places or people, kind of being on edge, kind of expecting the worst situation in most situations, a loss of hope, depression, and more significant clinical issues, anxiety, irritability, things that many of us experience but often don't think twice about when we think about our heroes. I would like for you to know that there are many resources out there available to our heroes so that they can learn how to be their own hero and continue to fight and do the great job that they do as first responders and respond to those situations and things that tend to be scary, such as fires, car accidents, crime, and many other things that we trust and rely on the professionals that do it best. There are resources within every community, such as therapists like myself, counselors, peers, pastors, other spiritual leaders, groups, and many online resources like the Code Green campaign, which focus to help EMS and firefighters. There are helplines specifically for fire and EMS. There is a helpline called the COP line, specifically for law enforcement, that can call in and get guidance and talk about their issues. Just to give you an idea quickly of how serious this is, 69% of EMS workers report that they don't have enough time in between traumatic events to regroup and to get ready for the next one. Many of them experience exhaustion. Over 50% of firefighters in 2010 have experienced PTSD and stress and upwards of that year, about 30 to 40% of them committed suicide. It is estimated by the Fire Behavioral Health Agency that over 400 firefighters and EMS workers every year commit suicide. And it's estimated that around 150 to 300 law enforcement officers every year commit suicide. 3/4 of officers report that they experience traumatic events, and at least half of those don't ever report those to their units or to their officers and superior. And at least half of those report knowing somebody that has committed suicide in their agency or in another. So these things are very serious and impact them as well as us. And so I just want to share that so that you can better understand the impact on the mental and emotional health of our heroes, just like you and I. And so I would ask you to look out for your heroes and to provide support for them and think about them and do what you can to help lead them to their resources so that they can continue to do what they do best, and that is save us when we need it the most.
Good morning. I'm Rachel Coleman here at Seward County Community College, where we are celebrating Patriot Day. And my guest today is Ed Polley, who is well known in our community and has worked in education for many years. But before that, he served in the United States Army and has recently written a memoir about his life and experiences, which he is making available for people to read. So we will have a link for you to download a copy after viewing our interview and read his memoir yourself. But for now, we wanted to talk with Ed and hear a little bit about why he wrote this and how it came about. So Ed, thanks so much for taking time with us today.
Well, thank you, Rachel. It's my pleasure. Why did I do this? Well, first, I think like any soldier that's been in a war situation, it haunts us. You know, I mean, I was in Vietnam in 1970, 71. So that was a long time ago, but it's still, there are parts of it that have haunted me, you know, basically all my adult life. And so by putting it down on paper and actually confronting some different things, I think it really helped me put Vietnam maybe in a better place where it belongs, not up front in my memory, but just as part of what helped me become who I am. And so the story kind of meanders a little bit with the history of how we got involved in Vietnam, a little bit about my family, about my parents, because I think all those things shaped who I am. And how I really came about writing this was that a year ago, I was at Red River, Eagle's Nest, and stopped by the Vietnam Memorial at Eagle's Nest. And there was a little book there that a man had written about his experiences, and I bought it and read it. And the next day we were sitting in a restaurant talking about it, and that man was sitting behind us.
Oh, wow.
And he introduced himself. And so we talked, and he encouraged me to do the same thing that he had done. Now, his has a lot more details about people and events. He must have had really good notes or kept a journal or something, because I didn't, as you've read it, and you notice that there are very few names mentioned. And I think that's pretty typical of an awful lot of Vietnam veterans, you know, that we did not keep track of the people that we served with. Part of it was,
go ahead.
We came in as individuals, you know, came into units as individuals, and left as individuals, not as units. And so I think that unit bonding that often takes place didn't really take place for an awful lot of us in Vietnam, and me included. So I thought about it, and then when we hit the epidemic, the COVID-19, and we were suddenly confined to our house, and it became an opportune time to do it. So I just sat down and started writing.
It must have been time. You know, my impression from the things you've said, and also just from kind of the broader conversation that we hear about Vietnam, is that many people who served came home with these awful memories and difficulties, like in any war, but because of the political time, you were kind of quarantined with your own memories and thoughts. And so that can't have been an easy experience for you or for your family.
Well, and it's really interesting because my brother went 18 months before me.
Mm-hmm.
And he has very few memories of coming home.
Really?
You know, his homecoming, excuse me, and my homecoming, it's just 18 months later, were really different. And I think that all gets wrapped around the drug culture and what was happening. Gosh, excuse me. I hope you can edit this out.
I won't be able to, but you know, it's real. And I like it that we're able to just have a conversation about this, because it's like you've mentioned to me, this is something people need to talk about. Like, how do you, how do you bring home those experiences and then live a life here in as a civilian in ordinary time and figure out how to be a whole person?
Yes. I mean, I can never, in today's world, I'm never going to be Black. I'm never going to be Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
I am who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I can look back on the experiences that I had, particularly, you know, in Vietnam and then coming home from Vietnam, and relate that to today's world. And I think that's part of the importance of what I've done. That it tells my story. And for me, it was the worst year of my life, far and away. But it also helped mold who I am today. You know, we are the sum total of all the things that happen in our life. And while for me, Vietnam was horrific, it didn't stop when I came home. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't come home to a hero's welcome. In fact, it was just the opposite. You know, I couldn't get a good quality employment because I was a Vietnam veteran. We were all supposedly druggies and baby killers. You know, I never met anybody like John Rambo ever, but that image was out there. So I think that's part of what, you know, we had to try to overcome. And so what most of us do as veterans, I think as people in general, is we bury that stuff. You know, we just pile things on top of it and forget about it as best we can. But you need to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD, is not the mumps. It's not the measles. It's not something you get over. It's a condition, and so you have to learn to cope with that. You have to learn, and the best way is to talk about it. To talk about, you know, the feelings that you have, and when things happen, to have somebody to talk about. So again, part of what we as an institution are trying to do is make that available. We hope, you know, in the next few weeks or months, where if people have a concern, you know, there's some place they can go and talk. You know, whether it's with me as a veteran or somebody else that they're on campus. I think all those things are relative. And I'm very pleased with what I wrote. You know,
I really enjoyed it. I found that I was able to better understand how we as a nation got into that war and the impact it had on everyday people who, I mean, you were really just a kid when you went, and I really could feel how that fitted into your background and your life, and then you've been very candid about some of the struggles that you've had to navigate just as an adult person, kind of carrying that burden of memory with you. So I'm hopeful that your memoir will be encouraging to people, and that it will really kind of I feel like you're paying it forward. You know, you're taking something that wasn't good in your life necessarily and trying to find some good in it and use it to help other people. And that's wonderful. I mean, that's really all we can do, isn't it? When
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
have pain and suffering.
And I think that's exactly right. That's exactly what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Two things. One is to
Yeah.
better understand me,
Mhm.
and for my family to better understand me and those times. And I think it's important. You're not military,
Right.
you know, and so for civilians to read that and have maybe a better understanding. And my war was a different war, but war is hell. War is awful. It's Sergeant Major Love, you know, says it's an ungodly thing.
Mm.
And we can never expect people to come back from war the way they were before they went, because we just see things and do things that, you know, I didn't walk the jungle. I didn't ever fire my M16. But I had some pretty critical work that I did, and we did it well, with all the distractions that were around us. And so I think it's important, again, to be able to take a look at, you know, there can be terrible things going on in your life, but you can focus in on what you need to be doing, you know, at that time, and be able to look back on it and take pride in what it is that you tried to do. And
Well, that's
so
a great message for right now. I mean, I think everybody on this campus feels that pressure of, you know, having at the back of our minds the idea about this pandemic and our responsibility to each other and to our students. And then there's still just all the ordinary things that have to get done, like making sure everyone's registered properly and making sure our janitorial staff are having to do all their normal things plus extra. It can be very hard to kind of hunker down and focus.
well, yeah, and that, again, I think that's part of life, and that's part of what we have to learn to be able to do. And it doesn't mean that we ignore the things that are going on in our world, but we're not controlled by them. And
Right.
And again, I think that's part of what I tried to do while I was in Vietnam, impacting on my life as any part of it. And again, I think that's part of the story that I think is important to understand, is that when soldiers do come home, whether it's to a welcome home ceremony or to what I received, we need to know that. We need to know about that, and we need to make sure that both as soldiers coming home, and as family and as a society, that we have a better understanding of the impact of what can happen. And
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, and I hope that people will be encouraged by it and instructed by it. And another thing we should probably mention here is that we will also be making available it's nearly a 1-hour training session by Brian Rixon, one of the therapists at Southwest Guidance Center here in Liberal. And he has a special unit prepared on dealing with trauma and how our bodies process it, how our minds process it, and how we can take care of ourselves. So one of the questions that we've been asking people as we prepare for Patriot Day is, who's your hero? And Brian presents the suggestion that we can be our own heroes by doing exactly what you did, processing our experiences, learning how to share them effectively, and kind of incorporating those traumatic and negative experiences in a way that doesn't hinder us from living a good life. So we're excited to share that resource. We're excited to share your memoir for people who want to download it, and we'll have information available about how people can get a copy of that and enjoy hearing your story as much as I enjoyed reading it. So,
well, thank you, Rachel. Again, I thought it was important to do, and I was glad to do it. And again, on who my heroes are, I think it makes pretty obvious in the book that my dad was a hero. But in today's world right now, you know, we have National Guardsmen that are here in our community, activated for now 6-7 months, doing the COVID-19 testing. You know, these are kids, men and women that have left their families and left their homes. And yeah, they get to go home, and it's not a war zone, but it's certainly the pressure of being exposed on a daily basis
Yes.
to people who might and might not be positive. And so those guys and gals that were willing to do this, and it's all on a voluntary basis, you know, I think are, to me, they are real heroes, along with all the other first responders that, you know, from the emergency rooms to, you know, that are dealing with this thing on a daily basis.
Well, thank you so much, Ed. I share your gratitude for our first responders, and I also want to thank you personally for serving. I was just a baby when you were over there, but my life has been better because of what you were willing to do. So I appreciate your service, and I thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks so much.
Uh-huh.
Right.